Brazilian President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva and his Argentine counterpart Alberto Fernandez held a joint press conference in Buenos Aires ahead of the 70th CELAC Summit. Peruvian Prosecutor's Office announced the release of 192 citizens illegally detained during the riot of the University of San Marcos. Those released accused serious police abuses. Russian President Vladimir Putin highlighted the strengthening of the Eurasian Economic Union, which he has prized over since January the 1st, stating it is one of the most self-sufficient poles of the multipolar world. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the TeleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. The Peruvian Public Prosecutor's Office has reported the release of 182 citizens detained during the riot on the National University of San Marcos in the capital city of Lima. The release took place after the intervention of the National Human Rights Coordination and the legal efforts of various groups of lawyers and human rights activists. The detainees spent more than 12 hours of incarceration in what they describe as appalling conditions. Some of them denounces abuses, retention of documents, and other exercises committed by the police. On Monday, Brazilian President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva and his Argentine counterpart Alberto Fernandez held a joint press conference after a bilateral meeting ahead of the 7th CELAC Summit in Buenos Aires. At the press conference, both mandataries welcomed a new stage in the bilateral relations between the countries. Lula and Fernandez addressed their intentions to advance discussions on the strengthening of the Mercosur bloc and condemn all forms of anti-democratic extremism and political violence. In this sense, the leaders have shown their will to advocate for the consolidation of peace and democracy in the region. It is expected that cooperations and dialogue speeches that were suspended by the former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro will now be reactivated and agreements on geopolitical and economic matters will be signed. The return of Brazil to the regional scene is one of the high points of the 7th edition of the CELAC Summit to be held this week in Buenos Aires. In Argentina, trade political and social organizations from the region launched the Social CELAC Summit within the framework of the 7th Community of Latin American and the Caribbean Social States Summit taking place in Buenos Aires. On Monday, January 23rd, the launching of the parallel Social CELAC Summit began at the Maldives and South Atlantic Islands Museum. The instance brings together representatives from human rights, political, indigenous, and social organizations from different Latin American and Caribbean countries with the purpose of strengthening the regional integration of the people. The main goal is the institutionalization of permanent spaces for dialogue between governments and social organizations and movements, as well as for the participation of the organized civil society. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel traveled to Argentina for the 7th CELAC Summit and began his work agenda with a meeting with over 60 Argentine businessmen from various economic sectors. At the meeting, similar to the one Díaz-Canel held in Argentina in 2019, the parties discussed the potential development of tourism in Cuba, the resumption of Cubana de Aviación flights, and projects in the agricultural, health, and biotechnology sectors. Díaz-Canel assured that it is the will of the Cuban and Argentine governments to continue strengthening the relation of exchange and economic collaboration. In the meeting, Jorge Nemes, Argentina Secretary of Development, Planning and Federal Competitiveness, assured that doing things as brotherly countries is the best thing for the nations. Díaz-Canel arrived in Buenos Aires on Saturday to participate in the 7th Summit of the Community of Latin America and the Caribbean States. Miami City will be again the scene of a caravan for the end to the U.S. blockade of Cuba. With the slogan, "Many Caravans One Voice, done with the blockade," the announcements made in social networks by the Brigade of Love movements announces the protest that will take place on January 29th in over 20 cities of the U.S. and the world. The caravans will demand that the Brigades of Love be built between the peoples of countries. The initiative, which takes place on the last Sunday of every month, will also pay tribute to Cuba's national hero Jose Marti on the 170th anniversary of his birth on January 28th. The coordinator of Brigade of Love, Carlos Lasso, ratified that nobody can stop these protests and describes the blockade as irrational and cruel. The Institute of Development and Peace Studies in the past announces on Monday the assassination of another community leader in Colombia. The name of the victim is Samuel Savi Dorado, Secretary of Junta de Acción Comunal of Reina Baja in the municipality of Montañita, department of Caquetá. The agency said that Dorado was killed in the early hours of Saturday by an unknown armed group who forced him to leave his residence. The Ombudsman's office issued an early warning for the entire department, pointed out the threats and attacks against the life and personal integrity of community leaders. 6 social leaders have been assassinated so far this year, bringing to 1,415 the total number of leaders killed since the beginning of the peace accords in 2016. In the Dominican Republic, the Ministry of Public Health and Social Assistance confirmed on Sunday the appearance of 6 new cases of cholera. The government entity declares that the case corresponds to 2 Dominican citizens, a 56-year-old man and a 37-year-old woman, both residents in Santo Domingo Este, together with 4 Haitians, 2 men and 2 females. The patients were admitted to a health center when they presented symptoms of presence of the virus. After being stabilized and hydrated, tests were performed and they were positive for the disease. The health authority issued a statement in which they stressed that the epidemiological fence and the permanent intervention in the areas are maintained to detect, prevent, and investigate any suspect case of the disease, as well as the installation of a mobile medical office. We'll take a very short break now, but remember, you can now follow us on our TikTok account as TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back to From the South. The Russian President Vladimir Putin stressed that the Eurasian Economic Union, which he has presided over since January the 1st, is one of the strongest and most self-sufficient poles of the multipolar world. The Russian President called this Monday for further integration of the Eurasian Economic Union in a message to leaders of Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, and Kyrgyzstan, countries that together with Russia are part of the group. According to an official communique, the close integration among the Union's member countries was a worthy response to global problems such as poverty, climate change, and the sources scary. Putin stressed that one of the most important strategic priorities of doing work should be the development of technological potential. Russia orders Estonian ambassador to leave Moscow by February the 7th. The decision came after the Baltic state demanded that Russia reduce staff at its embassy in Tallinn. The Russian Foreign Ministry said in a statement on Monday that Estonia has been deliberately destroying the whole complex of bilateral relations and has elevated its Russophobia to the level of state policy. Early January, Estonian authorities have told Russia to to strictly reduce the personnel in its embassy in Tiyin by February the 1st, with the argument that the Russian personnel in the embassy was not working on providing Estonian-Russian relations in the middle of what it described as an aggressive war. Russian Foreign Ministry's spokeswoman Maria Zakharova then condemned the demands and said it was not a secret that Estonia was one of the most hostile countries towards Russia. Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service reported on Monday that Ukrainian forces are strapping Western supplies, missiles, and artillery shells in the country's nuclear power plants. According to Russian Foreign Intelligence Service Director Sergei Nazarkin, Kiev has been using the plants as cover for the ammunition stocklines. Nazarkin claims that several cars loaded with lethal cargo were delivered by rail to the Bronov nuclear power plant in western Ukraine during the last week of December alone. The International Atomic Energy Agency deployed a monitoring mission to the Bronov plants last week and promised to station experts in other facilities in Ukraine. The Council of Foreign Ministers of the Eurobloc has stated on Monday in Brussels, the capital of Belgium, besides new sanctions against Russia, they will discuss another 500 million in military aid to Ukraine. In recent days, Kiev's demands have suffered major setbacks similar to those in its expecting of the battlefield. The meeting of NATO's military chief could not overcome Germany's decision to continue deploying the delivery of Leopard 2 tanks. On Monday, the head of European diplomacy will have to overcome the obstacles imposed by Hungary to cooperate with the new phase planned by Kiev in the battlefield against Russia. Germany has declared that it will not prevent Poland from sending the Leopard 2 tank to Ukraine, aimed at growing pressure from Kiev and other allies for such a move. The statement was made by German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock during an interview to French media 12 hours after Germany's Defense Minister Boris Pistorius assured that not only Germany but also other NATO members were currently opposed to sending the tanks despite Kiev's demands. Prime Minister Baerbock reiterated that Poland has no formally asked for Berlin's approval to share some of its German militaries, but assured that if her government were asked, it would not stand in that way. French Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne presents on Monday before the Council of Ministers the pension reform promoted by the government in strong popular rejections. The reform seeks to extend the retirement age from 62 to 64, although the increase of the contribution period to 43 years and the elimination of special pension schemes has also generated unease. Borne revealed on January the 10th the content of the initiative, considered the flagship project of President Emmanuel Macron's administration, a test that should reach a National Assembly in early February. We have more news coming up after this final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back. At least 16 people have been killed, including a child, in the collapse of a residential building in the Sheikh Mosque neighborhood of the city of Aleppo, northern Syria. The collapse of the structure that might have been due to water leak in the foundation, which will have undermined the 5-story building, which finally collapsed early on Sunday morning when most of its residents were sleeping. Rescue, civil protection, and firefighter teams arrived on the scenes to begin the search for possible survivors under the rubble. Pakistan's national grid has been affected by the fault caused by a frequency variation, which has left a large part of the country without electricity. Energy Minister reported that cities affected are the Karachi, Lahore, Peshawar, Quetta, and Islamabad, the country's capital. He explained that the failure occurred when the generating units were temporarily shut down during the night hours, a measure that they used to save fuel costs. Once the system was returned on again, the frequency variation began to be registered, which caused a voltage fluctuation, mainly in the southern part of the nation. Nearly 90 people have died, and around 40,000 children under the age of 5 have been hospitalized in Afghanistan due to a cold wave that has hit the country in recent weeks. According to a report released on Monday by the Ministry of Public Health, the 88 deaths are added to 10,000 infants admitted weekly to health centers, mostly for respiratory problems caused by low temperatures. The ministry's spokesman Sakaf Saman added that gas leaks in households started to have caused at least 6 deaths and 120 people affected. In the coming days, more than 100 Israeli companies will go on a strike in rejection of the cabinet of far-right Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. At least 130 Israeli companies announced that they will paralyze their functions on Tuesday as a warning to the Israeli cabinet in rejection of the controversial plan to overhaul the judicial system, weakening the Israeli Supreme Court. A message from the Joint Committee of these organizations says the strike is a first step in telling the Israeli cabinet loud and clear that the coup will not be carried out. The announcement comes after tens of thousands of Israeli soldiers took to the streets for 3 consecutive weekends to reject the ultra-Orthodox cabinet. Authorities and experts warn that Netanyahu has raised the judicial reform to get rid on his trial on charges of corruption, bribery, and betrayal of truth. In South Africa, the visit of Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on Monday is of the utmost importance of the African continent. The head of the Russian diplomacy has landed in the country where he started a new tour of the countries of the continent. The Foreign Ministry press office confirmed that a meeting is scheduled with Naledi Pandor, the South African Foreign Minister, with whom the Russian diplomat is expected to discuss, among other issues, the preparation for the second summit and the Russia-Africa Economic Forum to be held in St. Petersburg in July. Australia plans to purchase naval mines allegedly to protect its territorial waters from possible incursion by ships and submarines from China and other adversities. Military industry sources estimate the amount of the purchase at between 500 million Australian dollars and 1 billion Australian dollars. It will be Australia's first major investments in naval mines since the Vietnam War. The sea mines that Canberra intends to purchase can be activated and deactivated remotely after they are laid, enabling ships from friendly countries to transit safely through the channel and harbors. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our socials. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram as well. TeleSUR English, I'm from the South, so I'm Ana Marrero, and thank you for watching.
We share your